Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages. As a guy who's an absolute DC fanboy, Batman and Superman, and Batman, of course, was one of my first introductions to the whole world of superheroes, probably like many of you out there. Yeah, I do want to see Warner Brothers succeed. I really do believe in David Zaslav. I think he's gone out there and really cleaned out a lot of the nonsense out of his corporation. Anybody that were activists and that kind of stuff that were trying to push an agenda, I think he's fired most of those people. We've even seen a little bit of a change in tune over there at CNN from the kind of things that they've done in the past as well. And it's one of them situations where I want this company to succeed. They have gone through a lot of disastrous dumpster fires, but they own the rights to some of my favorite properties out there, and I want to see them do well. So it does not bring me any kind of pleasure, it does not bring me any kind of happiness to go out there and report to you that it looks like the Joker 2, aka Fou Adieu, out there is not going to end up turning out very well and is tracking way behind the original movie out there, who of course even exceeded its own expectations and its own tracking at the time. And although the original did actually beat its own expectations, because of course the all of Hollywood and the access media and all of the critics out there were completely and totally against this movie in every way, shape, or form, this might end up happening the exact same way. But considering how much confusion there is around this movie, the fact that it's labeled as a musical and Lady Gaga and all this other kind of stuff, it just is not bowing so well. But if the movie ends up being good, I'd imagine the second weekend will end up making up for this. The first weekend's going to end up doing well because it is just a sequel to a movie that was already smash hit successful. And I don't blame Warner Brothers for making this movie, even though a lot of the fans saw no desire or interest for it whatsoever. Because guess what? They're broke right now, ladies and gentlemen, and they believe that Joker 2 would end up being a hit just like the first one and hopefully make them another $1 billion. As of right now, it is not looking that way, but hey, who knows? We could be surprised, we could be wrong, and this would all end up going really, really well. It could all end up being a fan favorite movie. The audiences could absolutely love it, and who knows? It could end up being a success. But as of right now, between what we've heard behind the back scenes and how confusing of a mess this movie looks like it will end up being, it might end up not boding so well for Warner Brothers or Joker 2. So we're going to check out this article from bleedingfool.com, getting all of the juicy details and see exactly what they are saying, where the numbers are currently tracking out now, and of course look at the historical precedents from the first movie as well. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment in the section down below. Are you excited for Joker 2? The addition of Lady Gaga and the rumors about it being basically essentially a musical, does that either get you more excited or does it get you less excited about the movie? Are you going to go see this on the opening weekend and at least give it a shot? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. So from our friends over at bleedingfool.com, Megan Murphy says, Joker 2 is tracking way below the original hit film. And honestly, it's one of them situations where this thing looks kind of like a confusing mess to me as well. Like we've seen some of the scenes where he's in like clown makeup, and I've made this comment several times before about this movie. If they do it the way certain other Marvel series, a particular Marvel series on FX did it, to where the only time you see the musicals is like when he's in like his delusions, when him and Lady Gaga are having like a shared delusion, then I can see that working out very well. But at the end of the day, if they try to take this as a serious tone with some of this stuff, it is not going to go very well, boys and girls. Just because you got Lady Gaga in it doesn't mean you need to make it a musical. And I don't have any problem with Lady Gaga either. I think she did a great in the American Horror Story Hotel series. I really actually kind of impressed by her acting. I didn't think she was going to be able to do very well in it, and I think she actually ended up doing pretty solid. So I don't have any problem against her being in this whatsoever. But it's like, just because she's in it doesn't mean you had to turn it into a musical. American Horror Story didn't do it. Warner Brothers has its work cut out for it before Todd Phillips' divisive sequel, Joker Fedaloo, opens in North America at theaters 3 weeks from now. The movie starring Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga is tracking for a domestic opening of $70 million plus, at least $10 million behind the tracking for the first Joker, which went on to shatter records in launching $96.2 million domestically in 2019. Which, like I said, a lot of the time, and it's funny because a lot of these fan favorite films out there and a lot of the movies that a lot of the critics out there and the tracking people don't exactly think are going to do very well, a lot of time end up smashing expectations. As to whether or not this one is going to do it, I don't know. We will certainly find out. And like I said, it all comes down to whether or not it is actually good and whether it has good quality word of mouth. If it does indeed have a good quality word of mouth, this movie will end up being a huge success. Will it be a success as much as the first one? No, probably not. Most sequels never do end up anywhere near that kind of stuff, but at least might put a nice chunk of change in Warner Brothers' pocket, which is something they could certainly use right now. Pre-release tracking is hardly an exact science, and numerous movies of late have opened well ahead of predictions. But there's no question that Joker 2 has raised eyebrows and earned mixed reviews for its genre-busting storyline after making its world premiere at the Venice Film Festival. And that's one of those situations, too, that worried me with that, because they released those reviews like almost a month before this movie actually came out. They lifted the embargo, which normally they lift embargoes early if they do believe they have a hit on their hands. Like, all you have to do is look back to Disney right there with Agatha. They did not release their embargo for the full episode literally until the series premiered on Disney Plus. So obviously Warner Brothers thought they were going to have a hit on their hands because they released these critics reviews almost a month before this movie came in, and it did not go very well whatsoever. But like I said, once again, the critics didn't like the first one either, so obviously take that with a grain of salt. But there's no question that Joker 2 has raised eyebrows, and it's earned mixed reviews for its genre-busting storyline after making its world premiere at the Venice Film Festival. Rarely does one ever see a film described as a crime, drama, musical thriller on IMDb, possibly confusing the everyday superhero fan. And that's one of the things you heard about this too. A lot of people, especially like your hardcore superhero fans and stuff like that, that don't even mind seeing like a different take on the Joker and kind of like an alternate universe where Batman doesn't really exist and stuff like that. It's one of those situations where a lot of fans don't have a problem with that kind of thing, especially if it's done well. And Joker 1 was done very well. It's a absolutely incredible movie. And it's one of them situations where it could not end up going the exact same way. If you're trying to get people into the fan base, and honestly, at the end of the day, this is straight white men that show up to go see these movies, the idea of a musical is not exactly going to see this end up doing well. And it's not going to go over very well with your target demographic. Obviously, that's why one of the reasons why Todd Phillips and a lot of the rest of these people have tried to avoid the label of a musical. But guess what? Lying to people about what something actually ends up being. If this turns out to be a full-blown musical with a lot of craziness inside of it, it's probably not going to go over very well with the mainstream audiences, and these predictions could end up landing very, very true. So Phoenix returns in the sequel. Phoenix returns in his titular role while Gaga joins the cast in a part inspired by the comic book character Harley Quinn, and it's literally like Harley Quinn in name only. The makeup will be kind of similar and stuff like that, but it is definitely not the Harley Quinn and Joker kind of esque relationship that we have seen in the past. The duo are known for their toxic romantic relationships in the comics, with the title Feu de Loup referencing the medical term for an identical or similar mental disorder impacting two or more people, which once again reminds me why it's one of them situations where I do believe like the musical scenes in this movie will be them in their shared delusions. We've kind of seen that from the trailers with them having like their own little late night show and having like that kind of scene and stuff like that. I do believe this could end up being done well if that's what the musicals are limited to, their own insane delusions inside their head, while the rest of the world is not going and accepting their kind of craziness out there. And honestly, we'll have to wait and see what happens. At the end of the day, the audiences are what's going to decide whether or not this movie is successful. If they didn't end up doing it well and the whole musical aspect of it is not done over the top, then a lot of people will totally be down for this kind of thing. If not, that second weekend drop will tell us everything we need to know, especially after the audience score comes in, because if the audience hates this, Warner Brothers has another disastrous dumpster fire on their hands, and that's the last thing they need after reported spending like $200 and $250 million on this movie. Not looking very good. Obviously, they'll still be on the upside of things because the last one made $1 billion and it only cost them like $25 or $50 million to make the first one. But at the end of the day, this is not the kind of success. This is going to depend on whether or not it's successful or failure with the audiences, and that will depend on the future of Warner Brothers' success with this franchise and probably with Todd Phillips as well. So at the end of the day, we're going to find out here very shortly because this movie comes out on October 4th, and that audience score will tell us a whole lot, ladies and gentlemen.